I have to look up when I pray. Good to see everybody here today. I'm glad you guys are all here. We're finishing up this series today on wisdom. And actually, next week, we're going to be starting a series that I'm calling, it's just about stress. And it's I want to pull my hair out in the name of Jesus. That's what I landed on the name of the title. And so I always give that to Matt back there, like do something with creatively with the design. So I apologize for that, giving into that like late. Like, here's the title. Do something with that right there. What it is, it's going to be about this time of year. It's not, we'll talk about, Christmas and what it is about, but it's not that it's not a Christmas thing. To me, that's how we are around this time of year, around Christmas, and we're stressed to the max. And I laugh at Beth's cousin, Marie, came back. She's the one who was in Africa for 7 weeks, and she just came back. And I was like, how crazy it is, like, that you're over there that time, like, literally, they like to talk about being over there in the bush, just out there in the middle of nowhere. They don't have the stuff that we have. And you come back at this time of year over here, right around Black Friday and just all this, and then it's like Saturday is like Small Business Day, and then Monday is Cyber Monday. Like, this is America. This is just consumerism. Like, you come back from that and then right into this, and it's like we stress ourselves out to the max on all these things that we think we have to have. And so just how it is. That's this time of year. So that's what that series, we're going to talk about that throughout the next few weeks, but come back for that next week. But we are finishing on wisdom today. And I was thinking there's all types of wisdom in here. I found some of these things here. Here's a few, like, just some wise things maybe you can get something out of. This guy said, a wise man once told me that no matter how hot she is, or you could say how hot he is if you're, girls out there is someone somewhere who is sick of her or him. So maybe that's some dating advice. Maybe that's wisdom in that. I don't know. Also, whoever keeps his mouth shut whenever he realizes he's wrong and holds the mouth even when he is right is married. So there's marriage advice right there for you, I guess. And then this one is just general advice, I guess. God grant me the serenity to accept the stupid people as they are, the courage to maintain self-control, and the wisdom to know that if I act upon it, I will go to jail. So it's just some life wisdom there. Take those right there. We're not going to end it on that. We're going to go a little deeper in some of the wisdom here. But there's all types of wisdom we can get out there in the world. Some of it's just fun like that. Some of it you can take and help you just in day-to-day living out there. But we've been going through this a little bit more in depth. Like I said, God's wisdom trumps all of this. God's wisdom is what we're getting from, we've been looking in the book of Proverbs, but it's all throughout the Bible. It's just he gives us his wisdom. He says, I want you to pursue this. I want you to model your life after these things that he's telling us right there. So that's what it's been about. And this is what I think. I think we many times are when something happens, we want to put, as we say, put a Band-Aid over something that needs like major medical attention. That's kind of how we are. We just want to fix a problem kind of immediately there. That's how it is. God wants to solve, this is what I would say, I don't have this up here, but I wrote it down this way. He wants to solve the fatal disease that is quickly taking us down, but we simply want a kind of short-lived pain pill just for the next hour, whereas God's like, I want to fix this whole thing down to the core. I want to fix, this is fatal. This is something that is going to destroy you. And yet we're just many times looking for what's going to get me through the next hour. I just need something really kind of simple in that way. So that's the difference, I think, in what we're seeking sometimes in the world and what God comes at us with. It's a complete life-changing thing here. So like I said, we're finishing up this series on wisdom today. And in no way, did we cover all wisdom. I think I say this on every subject we cover. This is meant to push you guys further into reading the Bible. Get into Proverbs. I said you can read a chapter a day for a month. You don't get through that. But it's not just in Proverbs. It's all throughout the Bible. There's just so much wisdom in here. I guarantee you may know some things. You may have heard somebody speak some type of verses and you think, well, I've got the Bible down. But I guarantee you, if you get into this, like all the time, consistently reading the Bible, you're gonna be so surprised of what is actually in there and what God is trying to show us. And I think he's just kind of like, that's what I'm trying to say to you guys. I want to give you this wisdom and it helps you in your life. But you got to actually do what it says. Don't just memorize it. Don't just know the stuff. That's the hard part for us, is like you have the words, and sometimes it's like we need to change our lives to actually model that. So that's just kind of God's wisdom here. But this is what we started out with, Proverbs 1:7. And this is what we said is the beginning here, and it says it in there. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction, Proverbs 1:7. So that's the very beginning there. It's like, anybody who wants to come to God, it's like, this is the beginning. We got to come to this place of, okay, I fear God. I know who he is. And too often, like everybody if you've come to know Christ, if you are a Christian, you've come to this point right there where you made a decision, like you changed. Now you look at God maybe kind of differently. Before, maybe it was just like, well, he's this mythical figure out there, if he's alive or whatever, and you saw him that way. And then you came to a different place where it's like, okay, now I understand at least a little more of this relationship. God created me, and it talks about this fear of the Lord. Like you come to the more of a righteous fear and this understanding of really who he is. And you're not as great as you think you are. That's kind of where we come to this beginning place. We understand that. And I also mentioned in chapter 2 that mixed in really with that, the fear of God is we got to accept his words. You come to his word, and he says, here's my words. This is what I want you to do. Read these words. Live your life by it. You'll not only do good, but that's the only truth that there is. This is truth in there. So it's like we come to this righteous, like, fear of God. Okay, he's the one. I better change my life around and live for him. He is the creator of everything, and I'm going to accept his word. So that's the beginning. That's what we talked about in wisdom. If you are seeking wisdom, more than just those three that I talked about in the beginning, if you want true wisdom, life-changing wisdom, this is where it starts right there, is the fear of God, is that coming to that relationship with him, of who he is, and start getting into his words and accepting that. So that's the beginning point right there that we see. And then what I said, what happens is you come to that place of this changed relationship. Okay, now I trust him. Then that's when we start getting wisdom. Then that's when, it's hard to explain to someone if you're not a Christian, like how this really kind of comes alive, how the Bible, like it doesn't start walking or anything, but it's like, it comes alive. You know, you see the words in there and it makes sense. It's like, and God actually reveals things too. You start to see this in your life, what he's actually talking about. And when you start modeling your life after him and following him and obeying him, it changes everything. He starts to reveal things to you. And so that's kind of what happens right there. He gives you his wisdom. He gives you grace. He gives you salvation when you turn to Christ in faith. So that's what we see. So we're going to be in chapter 4 today. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. I'll read a little bit further than this later on, but I want to read this right here. Proverbs 4, 5 through 7. I like how he just jumps right into this. Well, I guess I did, starting in verse 5. But he says, get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. So that's like this really simple but like pointed point that he's trying to make this. And he just starts off, I like it just at the very beginning. I can probably just stop right there and just say, get wisdom. Have a great week. See you guys next week. We'll talk about stress and pulling out your hair. You know, if we could stop right there. But he does. He says, get wisdom. He just starts it right there. And in fact, I said it this way on the screen. Get wisdom at any cost. That's what he was saying in there. Get wisdom and at any cost. No matter what it costs you, he says, get wisdom. There's no fluff. There's no beating around the bush. There's no thing. He's just shooting straight right there. And he just says, I want you guys to get wisdom. I don't know if it seems kind of strange that he said in those verses, the beginning of wisdom is to get wisdom. It kind of seems circular right there. Okay, the beginning is to kind of get wisdom right there. I don't think it is if you, like if you understand what he was saying there, and like you understand what we've been talking about throughout this series is the beginning point is to come to God. That's where you actually get wisdom. So I don't think it is kind of circular when he comes in there and he says the beginning of wisdom is to get wisdom. This is where it all starts. It's this point where, you know, we feel like we have it all down. And you know, I said before, like the world kind of looks at us and thinks, well, you Christians are really weak and you have to turn to God and you're not doing this yourselves. It seems backwards. Sometimes living for God when you're looking on the outside, it seems strange. It seems backwards. It seems kind of circular. It seems like we're weak because we have to trust in God. No, that's the point of where we get wisdom, when we actually turn to him and we empty ourselves of everything that we have. You know, I mentioned last week, like the process of it is almost like detoxing. And I mentioned about, I don't know if you do any type of working out. I've heard people try to be healthy. Maybe some of y'all do it. Like you do some detoxing and they say, yes, head shaking. Me too. Like I see people saying like, you need to do some detoxing and like I even told you guys some guy that came up to me at the workout, at the gym, and talked to me about what I should eat. Anyway, that's not about me. But he came up, and or people say that they got to detox, and you got to eat all this stuff, and it just clears out your system, and it just sounds really painful, and I don't really want to do that. I'm like, no, it's weird, all the stuff that you'll drink, and it just clears you out. And I'm like, that's painful. I don't really want to do that. It's not for me. But now you think about this in spiritual life. What I was saying is it's almost like this detoxing in our lives. Maybe with the healthy way, it seems kind of, it seems painful because it is. It's changing something up in your life. It's okay. I got to get rid of some of these things. I can't just continue to do the exact same stuff that I was doing apart from God. There is some kind of changing. So maybe there is a little bit of a painful process there. But he says, this is what I want you to do. I want you to clear yourself of all this stuff that's in your life and start to follow me. And it's almost like that detoxing process, because some of these things are distracting you from following me. I don't have this up on the screen, but it's almost like Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and he said, for when I am weak, then I'm strong. That's what I was mentioning a minute ago. That like many times people that are outside of the church, outside of Christianity, and they look at us, and they see Christians saying things like I'm up here saying, like, you guys need to become weak so that you can become strong. And they're like, that just sounds really strange. That sounds weird. You guys just need a crutch. And so you've made up this figure God to kind of carry you along because you can't make it in this world. That's what's said many times of Christians. It's like, you guys can't make it. You can't be independent. I get it. You need something to hold on to, so you're made up this God, and he's like a crutch for you. That's how it looks sometimes to people that are outside of God. And that's what he's saying there. It looks as if we become weak, but we're clearing ourselves out, and that's when we become strong. It's the same way with wisdom. It's like we get out all this other junk that we think we know everything. We think we have all this down. We clear all it out, and then we fill ourselves with God's wisdom, and that's when we truly get wisdom. We start reading his word, and it makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's what he's talking about there. So he's talking about this extreme call right there. It's like he's pleading with us, like he's imploring, or whatever word you can say in there. Like he's telling us, like, I want you guys to see that this is something you need to be doing. Like, you need to turn your life around to this. This is something you need to pursue wisdom at any cost. That's what he's saying there. At any cost, go after this. So Christian, or someone who's seeking to be a Christian or thinking about it, he's saying this isn't a half-hearted thing. This isn't. I've said this before, but I want to be clear on it. He's not saying this is something you just add into your life. Like, you're living the same way you always were, completely against God, completely against his word, but you just kind of add on, say, yeah, well, I believe in God. I'm just going to kind of add this stuff on because I don't want to go to hell, or I want to be involved in some church or whatever. It's not in that way. He is saying this is something that is life-changing. It's not a half-hearted thing. It's your whole life. He's saying, get wisdom at any cost. Clear out all that stuff that shouldn't be there. Clear out all the things that is distracting you and making it not clear where you can see what I want you to do. That's what he's talking about there. This total, like, radical abandonment of everything else, and we just see God. That's hard for us sometimes. That's hard for Christians. That's hard for me to sit there and read that and be like, okay, I have to be completely and totally in on this. Because there's some things that's easier. Let's be honest on that. Some of us, maybe there's some things that's easy for us, but then there's other things it's kind of difficult. It's difficult to add those into your life, to change it around and start to follow him. But that's what he's talking about. Have you ever had anybody maybe give you instructions for something? It's like just real general, and then there's specific things like, this is what you have to do, or it's not going to work, or you're not going to get in there, and they give you specific instructions for that. I have to do that with my truck for people, like starting it, or even the tailgate. Like starting it now, like something on the computer chip is kind of messed up. So I did this one time when I was getting an oil change, and I was like, or somebody was using, no, it was getting fixed. I was getting my second engine, on my truck. I had to get another one. And so I went there and I was like, okay, if it doesn't start, what happens is you turn it over. And this happened to me one time. I was late for work, and I was stuck at a gas station because it just turned over, and I was like, no. I was like, I don't want to go to work, but I want to get paid. It's like, no, I couldn't get it started. And so I called this guy up who knows about trucks, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. He's like, well, just try this, right? He's like, put it in neutral. So I put it in neutral, and it started right up, and I was like, what? And so the computer chip was like messed up, and so on there it doesn't show that it's like in park. It sees like it's still in reverse. It just wouldn't start. And then you put it in neutral, and it fools the computer somehow. Anyway, so I have to tell people, I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave my car here to get my engine fixed. If it doesn't start, put it in neutral. Do that. You want us to fix that? No, because I know what to do there. I don't want to pay more for that. So it's like, just put it in neutral, get it started, and they'll get it going. There's other things that's weird in there. There's like this marble that rolls around, in the dashboard from an old game of Alyssa's like 10 years ago. It's still in there. I turn, I hear it. I'm like, it's just a marble. People over there, I see their eyes looking at me, and all that stuff. So I got to give specific instructions. Even on the tailgate, like it broke one time. So you lift up the handle, but you can't just do that. People are like, why won't it open? I didn't. Like, no, you got to close it back. Lift up the handle and pull the little lever out that's stuck inside there. You got to get that. So you got to have these specific instructions. And I think about that, and we have these specific instructions. I look at what he's saying here, and that's what he's talking about. He's being very clear on this. He's being very specific on wisdom. And he says, at any cost, whatever you have to do, get wisdom. So that means we need to change our life somehow, model it to where we're chasing after this type of wisdom. That's what he's saying. He says, this is important. I don't want you to miss any of this right here. Chase wisdom. Whatever you have to do, go after wisdom. Whatever cost there is, go after this. In fact, I wrote it down this way. Make an intentional decision to chase wisdom. I talked a little bit last week about being intentional in our lives and doing that. But that's what he's saying. I think that's what he's talking about. This is something, clear out the things that are keeping you from doing this. And he says, make an intentional decision to actually chase after this. This series has really been about spiritual disciplines. Maybe that's not fun. Maybe this is what I was thinking about earlier. Maybe it's not something we want to do. You want to come up here. Maybe you want me to do some type of Benny Hinn thing, throw my coat at you or whatever, and throw some dust out there or something, and just say you're all good and everything's fine. You're just going to start following this now, and doing that way. That would seem easier, but really the Christian life and what he's saying to us is there's some disciplines we need to be doing. It's like he lays out this stuff and says, this is what I want you to do. So change your life if you need to do that and start following this. Make an intentional decision. This is the spiritual life. This is the part that I think kind of turns off some people. You don't want to have to start doing things, and that's hard. I've already got enough stuff going on in my life, Kyle. I don't want to add this to it. And yes, that is what he's saying. He's like, if you need to change some things, if you need to do something that you haven't been doing so you can start following me, if you need to clear out some junk that's in your life, even though you like it, even though it's fun, and you got to clear that out because it's keeping you from me, then you got to do that. That's the hard part, what we have to accept, and that's what he's talking about there. This is like seeking a treasure. We've seen that also in this series. Matthew 13:44. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy he went and sold all he had, and he bought that field. I just wanted you to see that, what he's talking about. We've seen this before in wisdom. It's like searching after wisdom. It's like seeking a buried treasure, like trying to find it. You're looking all over the place. Or if you've lost something that had extreme value or just sentimental value, and you were looking all over the place. You know how it is. You turned everything upside down. You were looking for this. And that's what he's talking about. He kind of gives us these illustrations, and he talks about the kingdom of heaven, and he talks about what we're doing, what we're willing to do to start following God and to seek after kingdom, his kingdom, and following him. It's like it should move us. It should move us out of our comfort zones. Following God, if you haven't started following him, it should move you to a different place. It should move you to where your life actually changes. You want to start following him. It's like a buried treasure. That's what he's talking about right there. Let me describe this in a little more detail here. Looking down in Proverbs chapter 8 to see what it means to really kind of pursue God. Proverbs 8, verse 13. To fear the Lord, because we talked about that, and that's the beginning place. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. So he gives us maybe a little more detail on that, what that means. I hate pride and arrogance, evil behavior, and perverse speech. To fear the Lord is to hate evil. And you'll notice this is kind of a theme. I just have the next verses up there. Amos 5:15. This is God saying to the nation of Israel. Amos 5:15. He says, hate evil, love good. I just want us to see what he talks about this often. What about in the New Testament? Proverbs 12:9. It says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. So you see this all over the place. He talks about hating evil. This is something that's so important. So if you're someone who likes practical steps, kind of clear, laid out what he's talking about there, I think this is some clear steps. These just practical things that he's talking about. An actual action step that you can take is to start hating evil. I thought we're not supposed to hate anything. It's like we're not supposed to hate people, but we should definitely hate evil and sin. That's what Jesus did. That's what God says. We should be hating that. We should be turning everything away from that. Here's what I think about evil and why he says it in this kind of strong way. When you hate something, you try to avoid it. I would think so. If you hate something, you try to avoid it. If you hate something, it detests you. And so you just don't want to be like that. You want to be away from it. You want to change things from it. If you hate something, you typically want to be the opposite of it. That's just some things that I was thinking about with that. And so if you think about this, evil it's opposite of God. There is no evil in God. It's just, you could look at it being the complete opposite of God. It is not in any way to do with God. So if you think about it maybe on a line, you could say, okay, here's God, and then you see here's evil, and he's telling us, he says, I want you to hate evil. I want you to turn from it. So if you got God over here and you got evil over here, it's like you should be running from that. You should be hating that. It's just a really clear thing to really kind of see that. It's like that means you go towards God. You hate that. You want to get closer and closer to God. You turn away from it. That's what he's talking about there. And it's not what we do sometimes. I want you to see this even more strong. It's not as if we personify evil for a second and say, man, look, I really want to go over there with you. Evil, I love hanging out with you. We have so much fun. There's just so much we do. I love doing it. I love doing all this stuff. No, I want to go with you. I can't. I'm going to get in trouble. I'll get in trouble. You know what happens? I've got to stay away. Man, maybe sometime I'll leave the door open, and I do want to go there. Isn't that sometimes how we are, maybe with evil? Here's what he's saying. I want you to have more of an extreme picture of that. That's still being friends with it. That's saying, okay, I know the right thing to do, but man, you're still my friend. I'm supposed to go over here or I'm going to get in trouble. What he's saying is you're to hate this. You're to hate evil. You shouldn't be friends with it. It shouldn't be something that you're like leaving the door open for it. You completely turn from it because that's where God is. It's like you turn your back on it and you pursue him. That's what it is. I'm not saying it's easy. We're humans. I'm not making excuses for it. It's like that's really hard for us to do. But this is what he's calling us to do. Completely run from evil because God is over here and nothing evil is in his sight. So he's saying you can't be running back and forth to that. It's me or evil. That's what he's pointing out there. Proverbs 4, let's go back to that. After he says, have this hatred for evil. Proverbs 4, 18 and 19. He says, the path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They don't know what makes them stumble. Again, it's that picture. It's like there's God and then there's evil and there's a different path. One path goes to righteousness. One path goes to this well-lit path we can see. And one goes to destruction and evil, and it's weakened, it's deep darkness. I'll say it this way. Sin and evil blinds us. Sin and evil blinds us. I think I've been in ministry long enough that I've seen this many times. Christians, just people that have been in ministry, people in the church, so many times where sin does it. It literally spiritually blinds people when they're deep into sin. I've seen this so often. People, they're over there in sin and they're following God, or they're following away from God into evil, and they see this, and they don't even see that they're wrong. They can't see God's truth, and I've seen it. I've been talking to them just in frustration, like, no, this is the wrong path, and they just don't see that. I mean, so it's perfectly, I see that. They're blinded. I picture it this way. If you've ever been in a house or in your house or somebody else's house and the lights are off, it's just pitch dark in there and you can't see, and you know how it is, like you're walking in there and like about the height of where the light switch is, and you knew there was something in the floor and you didn't want to step on it. Have you ever been there, like it's complete dark and you're walking around in there, you're doing this, you're like, I think it's there, and you're like, I think this is about where the block is, and you're like stepping like this, and you're feeling around with your feet, and you're like, the switch is like right there, and you're doing these like weird steps because you can't see anything, and then somebody's in there and like they flip on the light, and you're in the middle of the room like this, and you think the light switch was right there, and that block you were stepping over was like back there, and you're doing this, and it's like a clear path right right there and there's no switch and you're like, oh man. And then you just go over there, flip the light switch on. But in that darkness, you know how it is. You're walking around and you're thinking, okay, there's something. I know there's something here. Don't tell me. I know it's right there because I remember being in here earlier and there's something right there. And that light switch comes on, completely changes everything. That's how it is with spiritual darkness. And that's it. I think what he's saying there, like we're blinded by that. You're stumbling around in this world when we're living in sin and we're chasing after evil and we're away from God. We don't see his word. His word doesn't make as much sense to us or we think it doesn't apply to us. All that stuff changes when we're living in sin. We start pursuing him. You know how it is. You get on this side too. What's hard about it is like you start to feel that conviction. You're like, it's a painful process, that conviction, and you start to feel it. But man, the light switch comes on and you see where you were back there. It's like it was easier. Like I didn't feel that conviction. But man, you look back and you're like, I was blinded. If you've come back from that, you look and they're like, I was blinded to that. That's what he's saying there. That's what he's saying. Chase after me. That's where wisdom is. That's when this word makes sense to us. That's what he's talking about there. Sin and evil blinds us. So what do we do? Well, part of it is develop that hatred for evil. Then, I'll say this up on the screen, guard your heart. Practical steps here. Hate evil. And then he says on here, guard your heart. And that's coming from this verse, Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, so again, this is something like, when you see that, that's like, this is important. I want you to understand this. This is a highlight point. He says, above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Again, more wisdom here. It's clear practical advice. This is stuff you can go out there and do. Hate evil, guard your heart. I mean, this is practical stuff that we need to be doing in this life as Christians and in this spiritual discipline. Hate evil, cling to God, guard our hearts. This is what I'm thinking of. This is what Jesus was talking about with these guys in Luke 6 when he was talking about this. He's speaking about, he did this many times, talking about fruit and talking about fruit coming from trees. You could understand if it was a good tree or not by its fruit, and he's comparing that to people. And he says this here in Luke 6:45. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And he's pointing out what's inside of us and what we allow to come inside of us, and what comes out, that's what's inside of us. And it's just like the idea of this tree. Is that a good tree? Well, what kind of fruit is it producing? And it's the same thing. What are we doing? And that's how he's pointing out that. I don't have this verse up there, but I talked about it in this series in James chapter 1. About sin and kind of where it comes from, and it comes from just our thoughts. And this is what I'll say, James 1:14. Each person is tempted when they're dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. So I can't ever say this enough. This is an important part of this discipline of spiritually maturing, and what you can do is like control your thoughts. That seems so simple, but that is where it all starts. Control your thoughts. I've said it before, and I can say it over and over again. Is like, this is the battlefield right here. Is not just my mind, but everybody's mind. Like, this is the battlefield. This is where everything comes. You can be sitting there right now, and I know you're all completely focused on me, and there's no other thoughts in your mind. Yeah, I know that's crazy to think. But like, there could be thoughts going on in your mind right now, and you're at that point right there where Satan, I think he's trying to attack us. He's trying to put stuff in our mind. He's trying to get us to be distracted, and this is where it is. This is the battlefield right here, and it starts right there with their mind. Again, that's what he's saying, because it all starts right there. You have a thought, and then it's like, what do you do with that thought? Do I pursue this? Do I continue to think about this? Do I put other stuff in there to push this thought out of it? Or am I going to pursue this thought? Because that's where it all starts right there. Control our thoughts. That's the battlefield. And he says, hate evil. He says, I want you, if you hate evil, you're not going to be continuing to put this stuff in your mind, because you're not going to put stuff in your mind that you hate. I mean, that just seems crazy. You're going to push this stuff out of your mind. That's what he's talking about. This is the battle plans that I would say you need to be going out and do. The goal is to attain God's wisdom. So we pursue him. We pursue him by reading his word. Pursue him by hating evil. Develop this hatred for it. And we protect our hearts, and we put the right things in it. And this will be the last verse I'll read. Philippians 4:8. I'm sure you've probably seen this before, but it's such a simple thing. But man, I remember being younger, I would hear those things and see it written on something. But it's not only something simple and seems nice, but it's a very practical, like, battle plan. I mean, really, there's no other way to look at it. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Like that's the battle plan. And like, this is what's happening in our minds right now. Stuff is coming at us. Every single one of us. I don't care how long you've been in the church or how great that you are or how many great things you've done. There's these things coming at us all the time. All the time. And it's coming for our minds. It's trying to tear us away from God. What I've tried to do in this series is just give some practical things. I could probably come up here and give just some feel-good things, and kind of get some emotional highs, make some, like I said before, goosebumps, and I was going to say I could yell in the right way, but I could talk loudly in the right way, because I can't yell. Let's just be honest, especially now. I'd start coughing. He'd be like, I think he's yelling, But we could do some things, and we could just have some fun and kind of have some goosebump moments right there. But what I want to do here, this is an important thing that we got to get, that I don't think we focus on so much, is the spiritual disciplines of following God. We pursue Him. We pursue His wisdom. But there's things we need to do. He says, this is what I want you to do. Here's some steps that I want you to do. If, I said before, if you do this, then this will happen. So He gives us all these things, and it says, this is on you. This is things you have to do. It's not a work salvation. It's not you have to do this to be saved. But He's saying to follow me and to pursue this wisdom and all these things, and just this spiritual disciplines. It's things we need to be doing. It's things you and I, we need to change things in our lives. We need to start modeling Him. We need to detox our lives of things that don't need to be there and start following Him. This is what He's talking about. So chasing wisdom is fear God with everything. Accept His words, right? And then we got to understand this battle, and it's being waged in our mind, this defensive attacks. Man, just put the right things in. Stop listening to people that only cause arguments, people that tear you down, people that are not living godly lives. Stop listening to those people and all those things. Get off of Facebook or whatever, social media, because that's all over the place. If you need to, get away from those things and stop listening to that stuff. This is in the Bible. This is what He's saying. It's not as if God didn't know we were going to be flooded with all this social media one day, and we're going to be like just worse off than ever. They say we're more connected than ever, but we're more lonely than ever. And we got all this stuff, and we're hearing all this junk. This stuff that's just screaming at us, and all this stuff that is not godly. And He says, get away from that stuff. Stop hearing it. Listen to my words. Put this in you. Detox your life. Get all this junk out of your life and start listening to me. Fill it up with the right stuff and guard our minds, right? Just put the right things in there. That's what I want you guys to really understand. There's practical things that we can do. Hate evil. I love it. It's just really simple stuff. He just says, man, fear me, obey my words, accept these, start doing it. Hate evil, turn from the things that are away from that. Guard your minds. This is so important. And just fill your life with me. I can't get any more practical than that. This is stuff, church, that you can start to do today. It really is. It's stuff that you can start doing right now. It's not really hard. It may be difficult for you to follow through with it, but this is not difficult stuff to really understand. I mean, it's really simple. And so I just push you. I guess I implore. I'm trying to use big words that are that's not a big word, I guess, but just I want you guys to take some steps to start doing this. It's the spiritual discipline, and it changes your life. I guarantee you that. You guys, go ahead and bow your heads.